From Vodafone's victory in international arbitration in the Netherlands in the retrospective taxation matter to the Union government introducing sweeping changes to labour laws in the country, this week saw major developments in India and the world. From a special court in Uttar Pradesh delivering its verdict in the Babri Masjid Demolition Case, to a delay in appointing members to the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India, it was an action-packed week. On Business Standard, news was complemented by views and analysis, and here is a snapshot of views of the week on businessstandard.com. Ever since India liberalized its economy in 1991, economists and policy experts have advocated factor market reforms. One important component of these reforms was simplification of India's archaic labour laws. Labour laws have now been reformed in India. Now comes the test, writes T.N. Nainan in his weekly column in Business Standard. Will these labour codes deliver higher growth in employment, particularly in the organised sector, where both productivity and wages tend to be better? If it works, everyone can celebrate. If not, it will be because labour law changes are a necessary but not sufficient condition for achieving the intended objectives, he argues. To achieve its objectives, India will need to make coterminous changes in other areas like cost of land, transport, and electricity while making India's tax laws more predictable and fair. Changes in labour laws were preceded by sweeping changes in India's farm sector in the form of 3 farm bills. So is the Modi government finally delivering on the promise of economic reforms? Don't jump to that conclusion yet, writes Debashish Basu. In his weekly column, Basu presents recent examples that don't present the government's reformist urges in favourable light. Indian government's battle with Vodafone on the issue of retrospective taxation is one example he quotes in support of his assertion. While retrospective taxation was introduced by the previous government, the Modi government pursued demands under it after coming to power, even though both PM Modi and former Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had criticized retrospective taxation when it was announced. The other example Mr. Basu quotes is of Toyota Motors complaining about India's high tax regime, pointing to a gap in promise of reforms and actual implementation on the ground. He remains skeptical. Meher Sharma draws our attention to profound shifts in central bank policies in the West and cautions Reserve Bank of India against following them. The United States Federal Reserve will shift to an average inflation target instead of an absolute one. This major shift has also inspired the European Central Bank to review its own strategy. Central bankers are suffering a collective case of egomania, writes Sharma. Emulating such policy shifts would be tempting for the RBI and would even make it popular on both South Block and Dalal Street. But it would be a mistake, he argues. The RBI and its peers have no such room for error. As the international arbitration in the retrospective taxation dispute between India and Vodafone was decided in favour of the telecom giant, Business Standard editorial view is that this dispute should now come to an end. Government of India must not seek to prolong this agonizing saga. Instead, it should learn from it and avoid situations that lead to such arbitration, as well as re-examine its position on current arbitration. TCA Srinivasa Raghavan does not agree with this view, however. The government would be justified in not accepting this award in favour of Vodafone, he writes. What he suggests is that both Vodafone and the Government of India work towards a face saver now. While the government may not need the money from this award, Vodafone has made the point that it has been wrong. Vodafone can now make an offer that suits both sides, he suggests. This was a week when the Reserve Bank of India was forced to postpone the meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, as the Government of India was not able to appoint 3 new external members of the committee. The terms of the previously nominated members ended as per rule, but the government failed to make the appointment in time. This sends the wrong signals according to Business Standard editorial view. Besides affecting the credibility of the central bank, the delay in appointment gives an impression that the Indian policy establishment is simply not prepared to deal with evolving challenges. This is even more important at a time when the GDP contracted by 24% in the first quarter of this financial year. Employment and work are very closely related, but the two are in fact distinct. In his weekly column, Mahesh Vyas, the MD and CEO of Centre for Monitoring Indian Economy, explains the difference and how the lockdown broke down old assumptions. Work is a broader concept than employment. Most of the work we do for our own betterment is not by way of employment. Distinct from work like these, a person who works for pay or for profit is considered to be employed. Data shows that during lockdown, the percentage of people who were employed and had work for pay or profit decreased substantially. This has implications for productivity and also for economic policy making, says the writer. Even as the economy struggles to get back on its feet, time may be running out for another fiscal stimulus. This is a Business Standard editorial view this week. The government has not yet decided either the amount or the timing of another fiscal stimulus to revive the economy, the finance minister told Business Standard in an interview on Wednesday. Thus, the government will need a clear roadmap for fiscal intervention to maximize its impact on the economy. A more proactive approach to economic management is required, concludes the editorial. India and China have been locked in a tense standoff on the line of actual control in Ladakh. In his column, Ajay Shukla tries to underline the confusion about where the India-China border in this region lies. For more than 6 decades, India and China have disagreed about this. Notwithstanding that, the delineation that really matters today is an agreed LAC. But even the perception of this LAC has differed, and China has never unambiguously revealed its perception. In 1993, both countries tried to clarify the LAC by sharing their respective alignments, including through exchange of maps. But the Chinese continue stalling this, and multiple versions of the LAC continue to exist. A special CBI court has acquitted all 32 accused of hatching a criminal conspiracy to demolish the 400-year-old Babri Masjid in India on December 6, 1992. The verdict is a solid reflection on the country's premier investigative agency CBI, says the Business Standard editorial view. So that was a snapshot of Business Standard's views of the week.
If you liked this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.